I will say, I anticipated maybe being closed for a couple of weeks, at most a couple of days, a couple of weeks. Obviously, we didn't know the extent to what the closure would happen, but I do remember thinking that. My name is Rick Jarvis. I'm the head of school at Zion Christian Academy. This is my first year. I think we were in a good position being a private school, a little bit smaller, fairly nimble and agile. I do remember once we started getting some information about the school closing or things coming as far as closing down things, we started meeting pretty quickly with faculty in order to try and start putting some changes or some protocols in place pretty quickly. The calendar really worked out pretty well. We happened to have a half day of school already, and so we were able to, we had some professional development meeting time set up for the teachers. We had to scrap that, but we still used that time to start talking with teachers about, well, hey, you need to, because we've got this little mini break coming up, we need to think through having a couple weeks worth of instruction. What does this look like? And so, quite honestly, some of it was we're going to have to make some packets and deliver those to people or have them come by and pick them up, especially for our elementary kids. Our upper campus, because they already used Google Classroom, there was an ability to just put more information, more content in that format. We really didn't. I know at that initial meeting we weren't discussing doing online Zoom conferences, which is what we have moved to, but that was not part of it initially. It was how do we get through really these 2 weeks if we have to do this kind of home-based learning? How can we facilitate this? Help out parents, help out students. It was really about the content initially. How do we get the content and kind of the objectives to students? We're a preschool through 12th grade school, and as I said, our upper school 6th through 12th grade. They all have their own Chromebook device. They use Google Classroom, much different in the elementary. And so, what we did do, we did end up assigning every elementary student a school email address with some security protocols in place so that every teacher on the campus could use Google Classroom, for instance, and Google Meet and some of the other resources that supports for education. But what does that look like for a 3 and 4 year old in preschool? It's just a much different experience. Of course, the early ed grades, they're really, a big part of school for them is just learning how to socialize and get along with, other children and how to follow directions and so forth. So some of that was lost. Even still, we made efforts, and our teachers have been just terrific in terms of how they've gone about trying to meet the needs of their kids and interact with parents and kind of remain connected. And so, at the elementary, and again, this looked a little bit, I don't know that I ever was totally satisfied with how it looked with preschool. But our kindergarten through 5th grade, some of their online environments after we knew this was going to be extended, it involved Zoom calls, honestly, were really just about kind of hangouts. So kids could see one another and, spend a little time in prayer and just the teacher having the opportunity to kind of encourage them. Yeah, it's challenging. And I will say we still have a kind of an analog approach to some of what we're doing in the elementary in that depending on internet availability and technology devices that are in the home, some of it has been still making copies of packets and teachers delivering those, dropping them off on the doorstep of some families if they're a little further out or they've got some limitations with technology or internet service. So it's a little bit of a blend that we're trying to do. I've been very, very pleased with kind of the community connection that our social media, whether it's Facebook and Instagram primarily, have allowed us to remain connected as a school community. So, we've got, our social media director has done a fantastic job in terms of we've got daily devotionals that students can upload, that students submit and we upload. We've got kind of a daily word of the day, some scripture that we do, and these are things that we're doing every day to let families and students kind of remain connected. There is, we do an online kind of Facebook Live chapel service for the elementary with our lower school principal, so where anybody can join in and kind of participate. So we've looked for opportunities to kind of remain. I mean, that's the biggest challenge, is we're just separate. In school, a lot of school is just being together. And Zion specifically, it has a very strong familial kind of feel to the culture of the school. And obviously we've lost that being separated, but we've done what we can to use technology to kind of help create that, or try and fill in the gap, as it were, not recreate it. And so I think that's been a useful exercise for a number of our elementary families and students. We've actually surveyed families a couple of different times about a variety of topics. And as you would probably expect, there are some that are thriving and really enjoying it. There are some that have been frustrated. I will say, when we had to transition to this for that first 2 weeks, as I was describing, that was really kind of a triage approach. And then our spring break regularly happened. We actually extended our spring break a second week in order to allow teachers to kind of reformulate and kind of repurpose what does online education look like if we're going to have to continue doing this for the rest of the year, which ultimately we ended up having to do. Because we moved into it so quickly, I think there were a lot of positives, but there were some challenges and frustrations. For instance, things that, while we probably anticipated it on some level, obviously a lot of parents were having to now telework. They're working from home. And depending on the internet service, I mean, you're spreading that amongst a number of users at any one time. A lot of families may only have one desktop computer. If mom or dad's having to use it and the kids have to access it, those were frustration points, certainly. And I think because teachers were having to move so quickly into this, there was, I think, in an effort to continue providing value, I think there was a push to just give lots of content, lots of resources. Check out this site, check out this. A lot of very cool things. It became very overwhelming for a number of parents as they're trying to manage this, help their student. I think the volume was a little bit large initially. So I think we've solved that problem a little bit, but it's not perfect still. I'm not totally satisfied. And frankly, we're hoping things get back to normal in a traditional sense starting in August, but we're actually working on a plan B and a plan C for what does this mean if we have to move to a hybrid model, or if we're trying to do social distancing. Is it going to be a group of students come Monday, Wednesday, and a different group of students come Tuesday, Thursday, just to keep the class sizes down to facilitate social distancing? So we're trying to be as proactive, in terms of, well, we don't know what this looks like, 3 months from now when school gears up again. So all of those things on top of, parents, again, they're going through this as well. They're staying at home and, trying to serve as the facilitator. I think the majority have enjoyed it, or it's been positive, but there's some that I think the frustration's been real and authentic and challenging. There seems to be this sense, well, school's never going to get back to normal or what it used to look like. I don't know if I buy that totally. I think this has prompted us to, consider how can we do school better. That's really the goal. I mean, how are we going to improve as a result of this? It is necessitating, and we've got a number of task forces made up of our school principals, our building principals and teachers talking through what does this look like? Because it really is a paradigm. It's going to require a paradigm shift for teachers because it's not, it can't be just school as we've always done it. Hey, I like my lesson plans. This is how I present my material. It's always worked for me. It really is forcing us to think differently about how do we do school. And I think that's a positive, frankly. Even in the midst of this chaos of the pandemic and the shutdown, I think it's going to make us better as a school.